Hey everyone, Zandrous here, and welcome back to another episode of Zandrous Reviews. And today's episode is about, well, X-Men Apocalypse. I did a reaction to the most recent trailer for the movie about a month or so ago, and I had said there that I plan on seeing the movie, and well, I just did that today. It came out on, I think it was Friday. I wasn't able to watch it. I had to wait till Monday. So, I just got back from seeing it, and I wanted to go ahead and give my thoughts on the movie. This will be spoiler free, so you don't have to worry if you don't want to know everything about the movie. I won't go into that till later, and even then I won't spoil everything, but I will talk about some of the good things about the movie and the bad things in the movie and the kind of what the hell things in the movie. So here we go, no more delay. So the long and short, we're going to go right up to what my opinion was. Was this a good movie or a bad movie? So there's been controversy, not anywhere near as Batman vs. Superman was, but there's been a little controversy where critics were not liking this movie. And our fans are saying the movie's good. And then our fans are saying the movie's okay and bad. So the spectrum's all over the place when it comes to audiences, but critics didn't really like it. Speaking as somebody who loves superheroes and enjoys seeing a good action movie and stuff like that, the movie is good. It's not great. It's good. It's something that feels like it flies. It doesn't ever feel like it's dragging its feet, really. A couple things here and there can get kind of like annoying, but for the most part, the pacing's pretty good, even if the editing isn't always that great, like just cutting to certain scenes that we didn't really need. They could have dropped that to keep it going a little smoother, but for the most part, from point A to point B, it's a pretty solid, smooth ride. So let's go ahead and start with our characters. As far as our good guys go, I enjoyed them for what they were. It's nice that they're finally starting to kind of tie up everything from the first two movies. Now, mind you, I have not seen Days of Future Past yet. I know. So I haven't seen it. I had said I was going to see it before I went and saw the movie. I didn't get around to it. So I don't know all the development that happened with the second movie. Again, I know of the plot and what happened for the most part, but even still, I don't know all the character building that happened. So I don't know everything that happened with Mystique and that whole situation there with DC. But they talk about that a lot in this movie, and I'm sure that would have probably had a little bit more of an impact, but even still, they kind of harped on that just a little bit. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, and I probably have a different context after I see Days of Future Past. But for the most part, Jennifer Lawrence did a good job as Mystique, though at times some of her dialogue felt a little bit forced. But she's still enjoyable in the role for the most part. And then you have James McAvoy's Professor Xavier. I like the way they actually went about describing why he goes from the luxurious full head of hair he's had for the first two movies into being, well, the bald Xavier we know. We already knew he was going to end up that way by at least the end of the movie, and we see how that happens. The way it happens, I think, is fine. It kind of makes sense. Like, does Xavier just shave his head? Is he just bald? Because, not everyone just ends up like that bald and doesn't look like he shaved. So, it's like, how does he end up bald in this series? And the way they explained it was fine. It made sense in the story, so I was okay with it. And then Michael Fassbender as Magneto was fantastic. You really feel a lot for his character and what he goes through. In fact, I would argue he is actually the main villain of this, and Apocalypse is just kind of the, the vessel for all of this revenge going on with Magneto in this. I don't know. When it comes to Apocalypse, we'll get to him shortly. Then you had our Jean Grey and Nightcrawler and Cyclops. They all played their parts fine. I'm glad they got some screen time. They didn't get as much as, our three main leads did. But, when you're kind of having to compete with Mystique, Magneto, and Xavier, that's going to happen. Because this whole thing has been mostly their story from the first movie to now when it comes to this trilogy as it is at the moment. Even with Nicholas Holt's Beast, it's been kind of the same thing with Hank too. This is all their story together and what they've gone through from First Class to now. It's nice to see this kind of arc finally kind of getting to close off. But it's nice to see them actually bringing in the other characters and starting to get focused on them, and we get to see the like Scott's development of his powers. But I like the way they did Jean Grey. In fact, her name was Sophie Turner. She did a great job as Jean Grey, and I hope that if they do continue making more X-Men movies, which I'm assuming they're going to, because Fox doesn't have that much left when it comes to good Marvel movie products right now, movie lines. Deadpool was their big one in recent years because Fantastic Four flopped, and the X-Men stuff had to rebuild after X3. So after the last trilogy ended shittily, they've had to do a lot of rebuilding and a lot of curtailing to what fans wanted to see. And I think they've done that again here to an extent, but it was nice to see the good guys actually have a bit more development for the next set coming up. And even the villains had a kind of the same thing. Now, speaking of villains, we had Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. I didn't mind him as Apocalypse. I think he did fine with the role. I think that his makeup was okay, and I think the suit was a little too over-detailed. It's like they went way too into it, and it's like when you over-design something, it can kind of just come around to just not looking that good. And I wasn't impressed with the overall look of Apocalypse, but it did at least make him feel, like he stood out a bit, and a bit ancient-ish to an extent. Acting-wise, he did fine, but he had to act through, some makeup and I guess some prosthetics. You can it looked like they had some kind of prosthetics go on the face. It might just be me, but it looked like they had something going there. But for the most part, he did fine. But I don't think, as much as they try to hype him up as the main villain, while he is kind of the main villain, he's not the starring villain. Because again, I think that's Magneto, because we focus a lot more on him and his struggles than we do with Apocalypse, really. I mean, Apocalypse is just evil bad guy. Because evil, all power-consuming, asshole bad guy. Whereas Magneto is somebody who has suffered through atrocities of war and through, just personal loss. And it's something that has developed well over the 3 movies. Again, I'm assuming with the second one. But it really makes sense of where his arc has gone. And again, it stays a strong character. And they have Olivia Munn and Alexander Shipp as Psylocke and Storm, who both did a fine job. Although Munn didn't really have a lot to say in this movie. I would have liked to have heard more from her, but for what she was there to do, she did fine. When it comes to Shipp, though, I think Shipp did a great Storm. I wish she had more lines, but I mean, she really brought across this kind of vulnerability to the character, because she's a kid, essentially. And, she's got these powers, and, Apocalypse awakens them, and that's how we get Storm. And again, through this, we get an explanation of why Storm looks the way she does. And I don't mean the mohawk, like her actually having a mohawk, because she has that from the beginning of the movie, but, why is her hair white? Well, now we know a bit more. So at least it has an explanation, unlike in the other movies, the other trilogy, where it's just, she has white hair. Why? I don't know. So I actually think she did way better than Halle Berry in the role, hands down, but that wasn't really a high bar anyway. Halle Berry's Storm was always kind of underdeveloped. This one is just starting, so the development's small, but it's still a good development. You get a sense of the character to an extent. Though her time with Apocalypse does kind of get overrun a little bit here and kind of puts her personality and character to the back burner a little bit. So, yeah, And then Ben Hardy was our Angel, and there's no development, really. That was just one character that kind of you were introduced to them, and something happened to them, and there's not really much way of reconciling that character. So, I think Angel was kind of wasted in this, just so we could have Archangel, because I know people have wanted to see Archangel movies since, forever. But I think one of the real show stealers, though, was Evan Peters as Quicksilver, because whenever he was on screen, he was entertaining. He was kind of our levity in a lot of the movie once he came in, because he didn't come in until a little bit later on. But a lot of the later jokes and that come from him, and there's some good stuff. Some really entertaining little funny things they do. Though the running effect is kind of, I don't know, I guess that's just me. I find it kind of weak. But the way they went about it at least made it entertaining. So as a special effect, it's so-so. But as a way of just doing a few gags, I like the way they did it. But actually, I'm talking about like the first person where like the camera's right here as he's running. That kind of just looks weird. But the way they do it makes it entertaining and funny and fun. But when they're actually showing it, what's going on around him while he's going at his speeds, I think it's interesting, and I think it works really well there. Jubilee's in it. She doesn't really do much jack shit, but Jubilee's there. So there you go, fans of Jubilee. You got Jubilee in a movie with a slightly more prominent role. She says a few words. Never uses her powers. So if you're going in thinking you're going to see some Jubilee powers, you're not gonna. And we also have Lucas Tillback as Havoc. Havoc's in it for a little bit. He's still kind of a side character in this. It's not a prominent role like he was earlier on in the series. It's because they're trying to shift these other characters forward, which I think is fine. I want to talk about the set design in this. I enjoyed the Xavier School for the Gifted. It looked really nice, clean, and it had a bit of reminiscent design of the original trilogy, while still kind of being different. So I don't remember much of it from First Class. It's been a while since I've seen First Class, because they had the mansion then. But I do like the way they kind of kept it well lit, and it was bright, and had like the golden brown kind of color scheme going a lot of time with like sunlight coming in, and just like the wood grain and everything. It looked really nice. So I thought it was a really colorful set, and even when it comes to the grounds itself, they looked nice. They were green. The colors were vibrant for a good chunk of this movie in a lot of different ways. And then you had your more subdued colors in other more darker scenes. So it had a good variation of just bright and vibrant and kind of muddied and flatter colors. And I think that works to the film's advantage a lot more. The special effects looked great in this. When it comes to the different powers, I'm not saying it's groundbreaking stuff, but it fits fine for what it is. I liked Psylocke's ability with her able to manifest weaponry using energy. It looked so fucking cool. I mean, aside from the fact she uses her blade, energy blade ability, when it comes to using this ability to make a whip at one point, it's pretty fucking cool. It looks kind of cartoony, but it's a comic book movie, so I'm okay with it being a little cartoony. But when she turned into a whip, that was actually kind of cool. And I was like, what else could we really have her doing in movies going forward using this power? I want to see them actually kind of work a little bit more on Psylocke's powers rather than just working on like, oh, she's got a katana kind of blade going in. She actually has an actual katana so she can dual wield. Maybe daggers. Just a thought. Could have been used, but hey, I'll stick with, energy sword and energy whip kind of thing. I'm fine with that. That was at least a good start. So we're okay there. Another effect I really liked was how they showed Angel's wings becoming steel, how Apocalypse transforms Angel into Archangel. And it's not pretty. And I mean that in the fact that it's not pleasing to see it watch. It makes you cringe a little bit. And the effects are fine. It's because the effects are fine and are done well that you're like, oh, watching as like his bones spurt out of his body out of the side. And I'm explaining this to you. Like you see like his rib cage or like wings forming out from his back because he has like a second smaller pair of wings that come out and they start forming. Like you see it piercing out of his body and like everything shifting and crunching and it's like painful. It looks painful. It was hurting me. I was uncomfortable watching it a little bit, but it was, effective. And the wing effect looks fine once it's finished. It looks good. And in action, it looked fine too. Though it isn't really showcased too much. Again, Angel's kind of in the background of this. He's a bit wasted, like I said, but when he had his moment, wow, he had his moment. And that leads into another thing with the effects was the brutality in this. Holy shit. Now, mind you, I have not seen, again, Days of Future Past, but I heard some things about, like, how far they went in that movie. Like, in this one, dude, they do not shy away from people getting hurt. I mean, you see people get crushed. You see people get burned. You see people get decapitated. You see people get picked up, their body broken and contorted, and then thrown against the wall. I mean, it is, like, painful to watch at times. It makes you cringe, especially right at the beginning when they go into, like, this mass, like, fight in a small area. People are just having, like, stone fall on them, and they get crushed and burned and flung everywhere. And it was just, hard to watch. Hard to watch. So, yeah, I appreciate it, though. I mean, it wasn't, like, over the top, like with Deadpool, where it was amusing, and it's like, oh, that hurt. It was so cool. Like, this was like, oh my god. So it got the effect where it kind of, I guess, the horror they expect from just, like, somebody using their powers to hurt people, or just from, like, you know, random falling debris. I mean, you feel the impact of those hits, and a lot of that's CG work. To some extent, there's some CG work with it. The CG helped with those scenes, too, as well. So the visceralness of them is there, even if there's not a lot of blood. Though you do see blood later on when Wolverine shows up, and we all know he's in it. And yes, it's Hugh Jackman. I was hoping they'd try something different than that. But you get to see him his release from the Weapon X program, and he is slaughtering people. Like, you see blood splurt on the wall, and you see him, like, digging his claws into people, and he gets this one guy, pins him on the ground. Like, you don't see it on screen, but he just charges at one guy, stabs him full force while running, gets him on the ground, and then just starts hacking at the guy. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. It was brutal. But you don't really hear him talk once. It's a small scene. He's in and out pretty much. But it does have at least some bearing on the story. The musical score was pretty good. In fact, they used a lot of pop music from around the 80s at that time, and they had some really good orchestral stuff going. So as far as the mix in that one, I enjoyed it. It didn't feel overbearing, and I think at times it was used to good effect for jokes and stuff, especially with Quicksilver. They had a good time using a bit of 80s cheese for his scene. And that was my non-spoiler review of X-Men Apocalypse. Overall, a good movie. Flawed, but good. So I do suggest you go see it. Also, if you're interested in the more in-depth aspects of the plot and my thoughts on those, including my gripes, you can go ahead and go here and check out the second part of this, which is the complete utter spoilers. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also share, and please join me again for the next time. So until then, my name is Zandrous, and as always, please remember, stay awesome. Until next time.